In June 1956 and almost immediately left for England, where Monroe was to film The Prince and the Showgirl with Laurence Olivier. It was an unhappy time for all concerned. Monroe was insecure and perennially late, Paula Strasberg constantly interfered on the set, and Olivier was irritated by both of them.
She was a difficult woman, you know. We like to always say the nicest things about her, and she deserves them. She was a very gallant person, but she was troubled and brought that whole baggage of her emotional difficulties.
Here, said the headlines, and everyone knew they meant the American film star with the famous shape and the wiggly walk. Olivier and his wife Vivian Leigh.
That would have been a perfect film with Vivian and Larry, but it was much bigger box office to say Laurence Olivier and Marilyn Monroe, you know, that was the big deal.
Laurence Olivier was definitely charmed by Marilyn Monroe, and Vivian Leigh told me, oh, the silly boy thinks he's going to have an affair with her, but I don't think that'll happen, she said with glee.
Olivier was smitten. He ignored warnings about Marilyn's reliance on the American method school of acting. Her performance was inspired by the actor's personal experience rather than the director's guidance.
He spent 20 minutes describing the scene, how it should be played, and she listened with that rather stony look on her face. And while they were making her up, her coach came up, the method coach, you know, Strasberg, came up and said, "Now, remember, darling, think of Frank Sinatra and Coca-Cola." So all the fine things that Larry had told about the motivation of the scene went overboard, and she forgot her lines.
There was one scene in which Marilyn simply couldn't get right. It was a lot of walking, you see, and at the very end of the scene, when she goes into the room, she has to say the line, "Wow, I'm shaking. This is worse than the first night."
Oh, gosh, another one?
She knew she had a line coming up. It's just that it had floated away a little bit.
Oh, no.
And then she'd lose it, you see. And in the wrong order. Well, that meant we had to take that particular scene 29 times before we managed to get it.
I'm shaking. This is worse than the first night.
The relationship got worse and worse. He shouted at her once when she was so late. She came on the set maybe an hour or two late, and Larry called out, "Why can't you come on the set in time, for fuck's sake?" And she said, "Oh, do they use that word in England too?"
He said, "It's absolutely the worst experience of my professional life."
She was an extraordinary character, very interesting, but very painful if you had to get a day's work done with her.